Hello, fellow artists. This is Linda Riddle, and it's a good time for art. I'm going to look at you through a negative shape right now. There's one, there's another, there's another one. We usually pay more attention to positive shapes, which are the things that we can touch and feel. Negative shapes are the spaces between those positive shapes. Some people call them negative spaces, and that's really the same thing. Let me show you a couple more. These are negative shapes, and so are these. In our drawing and painting, we can play with negative shapes in all kinds of ways. This is a simple way where you can just put different colors of paint in different negative shapes. And here's a slightly more complicated one with different kinds of lines and shades of gray. There are also some very unexpected ways to play with shapes and spaces in our art. I'm going to introduce you to a style of art called Surrealism. The term Surrealism comes from the French word Surrealism. In French, sur means above or beyond, and réalisme means realism. So if you put the two together, it's essentially beyond realism. Kind of like the way in a dream something feels real, but also very strange. You might hear the word surreal used in conversation these days. We're living in difficult times, and sometimes things just don't feel quite right. So you might hear someone say, "It feels surreal to have school at my kitchen table with a laptop instead of in my classroom with friends." What they're really saying is, it feels weird. It feels out of whack, unexpected. Surrealist art can create the same sensation in viewers. When you look at a surrealist painting, you might find yourself saying, "Wait, what?" René Magritte was a Belgian artist who was a master of surrealism. In these paintings, he plays with positive and negative shapes in a way that can confuse us. His paintings have a dreamlike quality. At times, they can make us laugh, and other times cause us to feel puzzled or even uneasy. Surrealism often takes ordinary, everyday items and combines them in a totally unexpected way. Magritte's famous painting of a bedroom is a perfect example. All of the objects are depicted precisely and realistically, but the painting makes no rational sense. In surrealism, we see ships made of rippling water. Massive boulders float in the air. Birds become a cloudy sky. Positive and negative shapes trade places, and we are left feeling perplexed and enchanted. Looking at Magritte's paintings definitely got me in a surreal mood. Magritte has inspired me to explore making my own surrealist paintings and drawings. Let's take a minute to talk about getting ideas. Recently, my neighbor gave me this beautiful sunflower that had blown over in her garden. I've been using it to decorate my house and to explore positive and negative shapes in drawing and painting. Eventually, the flower began to wilt. I happened to glance at it, and my first thought was, bad hair day. So of course, I had to give it a face. The inspiration for this drawing came as I was on a walk. I passed a pair of cypress trees right on the edge of Monterey Bay. You can see the water when you look through the negative shapes made by the branches. I couldn't help thinking about all the fish swimming out there. And the next thing I knew, I had an idea for a surrealist painting. I picked one tree from the scene, and I simplified it quite a bit in my drawing. I made sure the branches went all the way off the edges of the page so that I could create interesting negative shapes between the branches. I decided to make the fish be sardines because they're so shimmery and magical as they swim together. I'm super excited because I have these wonderful pearlescent watercolors. So I'll really be able to make my fish shimmer. I'll post the painting on Instagram when it's finished. If you're struggling to find an idea for your painting, here's another approach you might want to try. Flip through some magazines and collect a lot of images. Fit together a couple of pictures of things that juxtapose objects in a surprising, witty, or thought-provoking way. And you have a starting point for a surrealist painting. That's how I came up with the idea for this painting I did in a college class. The only reason I still have it is that my parents were sweet enough to hang it in their breakfast room for 30 years. Here's a shout out to parents who support their kids' creativity. There are lots of other ways to explore positive and negative shape besides surrealism. I'll give you a couple of simple ideas. These are a couple of drawings I did of my sunflower stalk. You can get tips on drawing by watching my contour drawing video. I'll put a link below. Since the sunflower stalk is tall and skinny, I cut the paper into tall and skinny rectangles. I made sure the stalk and the leaves go right off the edges of the page. This gave me lots of negative shapes or spaces to work with. On this one, I'm simply going to put different colors into all the different negative shapes. Here's a drawing that I did of some tulips where I did this technique. I used paint on this one. For the one I'm doing today, I'm going to use colored chalk. I especially like this brand of colored chalk for working on paper because the colors are pretty vibrant. When I draw with colored chalk, I like to dip it into water first like this so that it goes on kind of like paint. While it's wet, the colors will seem kind of dark, but as they dry, they'll lighten back up. This is the same color, dry. Here's how it looks now that the chalk is dry. On this drawing, I'm going to play around with lines and shades of gray using markers. To learn more about using line, check out my video, Exploring Line. I'll put a link below. Here are some children's drawings exploring negative shape. This one was done on scratchboard by a 12-year-old. This drawing was done with marker, oil pastel, and watercolor by a 10-year-old. When I taught in Korea, we did lots of drawings of the traditional architecture there. A 10-year-old did this marker drawing and filled the negative space with a concentric line pattern. Another 10-year-old did this drawing with India ink, oil pastel, and watercolor. A 7-year-old did this exuberant drawing of a traditional Korean dancer with oil pastel and watercolor. She filled all the negative shapes with circular patterns and a variety of colors. I hope these give you some ideas for working with negative shapes in your artwork. Thank you so much for joining me today. Share your artwork with all of us at #GoodTimeForArt. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like and subscribe to my YouTube channel. That's all for today, but remember, it's always a good time for art.